Hi, it's Taylor T. Carlson. I'm here with another video for you. And today we are going to review the 1990s HBO miniseries From the Earth to the Moon. I thought it would be appropriate to cover this in honor of the 50th anniversary of Apollo 11's landing on the moon. This miniseries was released in the late 1990s on HBO, and it was produced by Tom Hanks and Ron Howard, amongst others. The two of them, of course, had worked together on Apollo 13, and Tom Hanks had recently finished doing his first film as director, That Thing You Do, but clearly he wanted to tell more stories about America's role in the space race, and the result was this mini-series which ran for 12 episodes, which were about an hour long each, and they took it upon themselves to tell parts of the story that had not previously been depicted in other media. In addition to all the different angles that Hanks and his crew told this story from, there was an excellent cast assembled with a ton of actors. Each episode had its own director, its own musical score, and its own cast, with a few of the actors reprising their roles through multiple episodes. And I'm going to have to grab my phone just to read off a few of these actor names because the cast is that big. Okay, a few of the actors who were appearing in the miniseries include Tom Hanks, Lane Smith, Clint Howard, Jay Moore, Blythe Danner, Ted Levine, Mark Rolston, Peter Scolari, Tim Daly, Steve Zahn, Bryan Cranston, Dave Foley, Cary Elwes, Gary Cole, Stephen Root, Chris Ellis, Rita Wilson, Al Franken, Sally Field, Ronnie Cox, Alan Ruck, John Slattery, and Max Wright. As you can see, a huge cast of actors and some big names too. The series obviously is based on factual events. There was a little bit of artistic license employed here. For instance, there is a fictional reporter character that appears in multiple episodes, just as sort of a way of tying it together. You will see a few familiar faces from episode to episode, and the really big draw here, like I previously said, is they covered a lot of things that were not previously covered by other films that dealt with America's space race. I mean, you have an episode dealing with the lives of the astronauts' wives. You have an episode dealing with moon geology and how they got the NASA astronauts interested in this and more excited about the concept. Even the episode revolving around Apollo 13 doesn't just retread the movie, which also, of course, featured Tom Hanks, but rather it looks at it from the point of view of the reporters. Some other great moments in the series include the investigations following the Apollo 1 fire that claimed the lives of 3 astronauts, and on top of that, I mean, there's even an episode dealing with one of Neil Armstrong's pre-Apollo 11 missions. 20 years later, this miniseries absolutely holds up. It's one of the most ambitious projects ever focusing on the space race. You've got great acting, great storytelling, great production and period detail. It's great to see just how much work went into this, and the fact that it holds up 2 decades later, that should say something. Admittedly, at times, the storytelling does get to be a bit much because you do have a lot of characters, and it's hard to keep track of everybody, especially if you have no prior familiarity with the space race. But again, they were going for accuracy pretty much the whole time, and they casted this production so well, and cast and crew, everybody does their job excellently here. It's definitely one of my favorite productions ever made about this subject. Now, people were wondering for years if From the Earth to the Moon was ever going to get a Blu-ray release. It got a DVD release back circa 2006, and I think even before that it got a VHS release, but this was originally made for viewing on old 4x3 television sets, but for the DVD release it was controversially cropped to 16:9 so as to take advantage of the space on a widescreen TV. This, of course, means chopping the top and bottom off of the picture while slightly extending the sides. Unfortunately, this Blu-ray release of From the Earth to the Moon is still cropped in the 16:9 ratio, just like the DVD release. I can't say if it's been reframed. Unfortunately, I don't have the DVDs for comparison. For the most part, this is not a problem. This was shot future-proofed so that if it ever was cropped to a widescreen ratio, there wouldn't be a whole lot of information lost in the translation. Unfortunately, there are a few moments that stick out like a sore thumb. You do have some characters' heads cut off. You do have like nameplates and badges cut off. It does feel a bit cluttered at times. Most of the shots actually look pretty good despite this, because you can tell overall they did future-proof the way they shot this. I wish they had included an option to view it in 4:3 or 16:9. One thing I'm sure on your minds about this Blu-ray release is, so how is the picture quality, cropping and such considered? The short answer is, it looks very good. They've done a solid job remastering this feature, and it's also worth noting that because the original models and special effects were mastered in standard definition, they went back and redid those with CGI, and fortunately, those actually blend in pretty well. Usually I'm not a fan of revisionist stuff like that. Like, I absolutely loathe the Star Wars special editions and all those primitive CGI effects they shoehorned in there, but here everything just blends together perfectly. This is an example of how if you're going to update something, you do it right without having the new edition stick out like a sore thumb. Now, you do have to keep your expectations in check because there are certain elements that are never going to look great. There is quite a bit of stock footage used throughout the presentation. The 12th and final episode actually has some footage of the old movie, A Trip to the Moon. Like, that in particular doesn't look too good. That particular film has since been remastered and looks very good, but obviously they didn't go and get that footage. There's one episode that revolves around a documentary film crew making a movie about the space race and NASA's role, and that footage looks very grainy, as if it was something that was actually being produced back in the era. So stuff like that's going to look that way for authenticity's sake, but overall, I think any fan is going to be impressed with what they see here. You're probably wondering, too, are there any bonus features? The package is admittedly a little slim in this regard, but they did include an original vintage making-of featurette that runs for about half an hour. I'm guessing this was made around the time they originally made the series, and in addition to that, there's a second featurette which deals with the Blu-ray remastering process as well as the addition of the new special effects. This actually sheds some light on the process, and I think anyone who's a fan will want to watch this at least once. It's nice to get this duo of bonus features, though honestly I was hoping they'd include a little bit more here. It's the 50th anniversary of Apollo 11 landing on the moon. You can't go wrong with From the Earth to the Moon. This package, despite a few minor issues, does come very highly recommended. If you want to see more, be sure to subscribe to my channel and hit that like button down below. I'm Taylor T. Carlson, and I will see you on my next video.